The call came just after midnight, slipping through static on the precinct's secondary channel, a silence where Aaron Walker's voice was supposed to be. Routine patrol, rural stretch outside Clearfield. Nothing unusual until she didn't check in, until dispatch called twice and got only the hiss of a deadline. Officer Aaron Walker wasn't the kind to vanish. Not without reason, not without backup. The first responders found her cruiser parked along a dirt road just past the tree line, engine off, driver's door slightly ajar, radio mic hanging by its cord like it had been dropped mid-sentence. Her flashlight lay on the ground, the beam long since flickered out. But no sign of Aaron, no signs of struggle, just the kind of quiet that feels wrong. The kind of quiet that makes seasoned officers grip their sidearms a little tighter. Then they heard it, a low, piercing howl that cut through the woods like grief sharpened into sound. They followed it, 50 yards from the car, through tall grass and fading moonlight. They found Luna, her black and white coat streaked with mud, her paws bleeding from raw scrapes. She was circling something. A weathered barn, half swallowed by overgrowth, its roof sagging, boards cracked from rot. Luna barked once, sharp and furious, then circled again, nose to the ground, tail stiff. A deputy approached with a leash, crouching low. "Easy, girl," he murmured. But Luna snapped her teeth, not at him, at the leash. Then she turned and sat, square in front of the barn's heavy wooden doors, her body planted like a sentry. She didn't move, wouldn't move, just stared, ears pinned back, eyes wild with something the humans around her didn't understand yet. Something more than fear, something closer to refusal. She had followed Aaron's scent this far. She wasn't leaving without her. When a second deputy tried to coax her with a treat, Luna didn't flinch. She lifted her muzzle to the sky and howled again, louder this time, longer. A sound not meant to call attention, a sound meant to say she's in there. A few officers glanced toward the barn, unease crawling up their necks. One muttered, "Place looks like it's gonna fall in on itself." But Luna's stillness said otherwise. Something was inside. And as the air turned colder and the moon dipped behind the clouds, they all felt it. Officer Aaron Walker wasn't missing. She was close, and the only soul who hadn't given up on her had four legs and fire in her chest. The second leash snapped faster than the first. Luna didn't growl. She didn't hesitate. She sank her teeth into the nylon like it was nothing, severed it with one clean bite, and bolted back to the barn door, paws kicking up mud. She slammed her body against the warped wood, barking with such force her chest heaved. Deputies tried again, cautiously now, but she was no longer just a dog. She was something more primal, unmovable, locked in place by something beyond training. Her handler was in there. She knew it, and she wasn't leaving. The barn loomed ahead, its decaying frame groaning in the wind. A place forgotten by time. No power, no use, just dust and bad memories. But then someone smelled it. Faint at first, then undeniable. Smoke. Not the clean curl of a chimney, but the thick, bitter sting of dry wood catching flame. A deputy squinted at the roofline. "There," he whispered, pointing toward a jagged seam where light cracked through the rafters. A thin stream of smoke slithered into the air, slow and sinister. The structure had been dead for decades, yet now it breathed fire. Calls were made, engines dispatched, but the nearest fire station was 20 minutes out, and the smoke was growing faster than that. Luna didn't flinch. As the first tendrils of heat began curling through the house in the boards, she scratched at the base of the door with her front paws, whimpering low in her throat. It wasn't panic. It was pleading. Someone yelled to pull her back. A deputy grabbed for her collar. She spun around, teeth bared, but only for a second. Then she turned back to the door, laid down and went still. Her tail tucked low, her ears folded flat against her skull, but her eyes never left the flame beginning to bloom in the corner window. The fire was slow, creeping, almost reluctant, but it was real, and Luna wasn't leaving, not even as embers began to flicker, not even as the old hay inside caught, and the temperature rose like a breath held too long. She'd followed her partner into gunfire, into alleyways, into storms. This was no different. Whatever waited on the other side of that door, alive or gone, Luna had already made her choice. She would stand her ground, or burn with it. The flames weren't loud yet, not the way people imagine fire when it's roaring through buildings. This was the kind that whispered, that crept, that took its time like it was hunting something that couldn't run. The barn crackled softly, the way old bones do when they shift after years of silence. Luna darted along the perimeter, barking into the rising smoke, her paws slicing grooves into the earth. She circled once, then twice, then slammed herself into the barn door again, her chest heaving, her tail rigid like a drawn line. Sirens wailed in the distance, echoing off the hills, getting closer but not fast enough. The deputies stood helpless, radios crackling in their hands, the wind picking up ash and spinning it through the air like black snow. That's when the youngest firefighter froze. He was barely 22, gear only halfway on, helmet tilted awkwardly on his head. He was crouched low, trying to clip on his oxygen tank, when he tilted his head toward the barn and muttered, "Did you hear that?" The others didn't answer. "Not the day," he said louder. "Not her, something else." One of the older firefighters, distracted by rising smoke and flickering light, glanced back. "The wood's popping. It's just heat expansion." But the rookie didn't look convinced. He stood slowly, took a few steps closer, then stopped cold. His eyes went wide. There it is again. Luna froze too, just for a second. Her head snapped to the left side of the barn, ears forward. She barked once, loud and sharp, then ran to the edge of the wall and pressed her body against it, tail low, pawing furiously. "There's something in there," the rookie said, breath catching. "I swear to God, someone's inside." A moment passed, stretched thin by tension. Then another bark from Luna, longer this time, rising in pitch, desperate. One of the lieutenants finally cursed under his breath and snapped, "Suit up, everyone, yeah, full gear, or move." The team scrambled to action, axes, water lines, breaching tools, none of it fast enough, but all of it coming together in a blur of urgency. The fire was starting to show its teeth now, licking up the frame, curling through the gaps like it wanted out. But something inside, someone was waiting. Maybe it was a ghost, maybe it was heat playing tricks, or maybe, just maybe, it was the voice Luna had known all along, the one calling through flame and fear. The one she'd refused to leave behind. The barn door groaned under the axe's final blow, splintering open with a howl as smoke poured out like breath held too long. The heat hit them first, a wall of it, dense and smothering, wrapping around their gear like it was trying to push them back. But they dropped low, crawling through the ash and blackness, flashlights cutting narrow beams through a world turned to cinder. Each breath came through filters, heavy and labored, every movement a battle against rising flame and falling time. Inside, the structure was already starting to fold. Beams sagged, the roof above groaned like it was trying to scream. The air shimmered with heat waves. "Left side," one of the firefighters shouted, voice muffled behind his mask. "I've got movement. Something's under there." They pushed toward the back corner through a path cluttered with scorched bales of hay, one of which was already glowing at the edges. A half-burned ladder collapsed behind them, and still they moved forward. And then, there it was, a boot, half covered in soot. Still, too still. One firefighter dropped to his knees, swept debris aside with gloved hands, and yanked back a torn canvas tarp blackened with smoke. Beneath it, curled awkwardly, was a figure, a vest half melted at the shoulder, a radio charred to its clip, one hand still clutching a shattered flashlight. "It's her," he said hoarsely. "It's Officer Walker." She wasn't conscious. Her skin was ghost pale beneath the soot, her lips cracked, her body limp. But when he pressed his fingers to her neck, there, a pulse, weak but present. The other firefighter knelt beside him, laying an oxygen mask gently over her mouth, his hands shaking only slightly. "We've got a live one," he radioed. "Repeat, we've got a live one inside, preparing to extract." Time warped. The fire hissed louder. The floor beneath them moaned like it was about to give way. They wrapped her in a heat blanket, lifted her slowly, every breath a prayer against collapse. One step, another, and then the light of the door, blazing behind the smoke, a shape clearer now than it had been before. Outside, Luna's ears shot up. She stood, tail stiff, eyes locked on the entrance. And when Aaron's body emerged from the flames, Luna let out a sound no one had ever heard from her before. A soft, broken whimper. Not fear, not relief. Something between. Because her partner wasn't gone. Not yet. And she hadn't been wrong. She'd known all along. The roar came seconds after they cleared the threshold, a deep, snarling crack as the barn's roof gave up its final breath and collapsed inward, sending a geyser of ash and flames surging into the night sky. The force knocked two firefighters to their knees, but the one carrying Aaron didn't stop. He held her tighter, teeth gritted beneath his mask, and ran straight into the cold, open air. The moment her body hit the grass, Luna was there. She didn't bark. She didn't cry. She simply threw herself against Aaron's side, her nose nudging into the curve of her shoulder, her chest heaving in sync with her handler's shallow breaths. It was like she was trying to breathe for her. Paramedics were on her in an instant, rolling Aaron gently onto her back, cutting open the charred vest, checking vitals. Pulse is weak. She's dehydrated. Smoke inhalation. Possible internal trauma, one said, working with precision, voice steady despite the urgency. Another EMT pulled back the remains of Aaron's glove and froze. "What the hell?" In her hand, clenched with the last ounce of strength she must have had, was a length of frayed nylon, the end of a standard-issue canine leash. The metal clip, blackened and bent, still clung to the cuff of her sleeve. It wasn't just debris, it had been used. They uncoiled it gently, revealing bits of dried blood where it had cut into her palm. One of the firefighters knelt beside them, eyes wide. "She dragged herself," he whispered, "out of wherever she was. She used the leash." The implications settled over the group like fog. Somewhere inside that burning barn, Aaron Walker had been trapped, pinned or buried, left in the dark. But she hadn't stopped. She hadn't screamed. She had waited. And when Luna barked, again and again, never giving up, Aaron found the leash, and she pulled, inch by inch, toward the sound, toward the only voice she knew would never stop calling for her. Luna stood over her now, one paw pressed lightly on Aaron's ribs, her eyes locked on the medics like a silent guardian daring them to fail. But they didn't. The ambulance doors opened, vitals stabilized, oxygen flowed. And as the wheels lifted Erin inside, Luna tried to jump in after her. They had to stop her, had to hold her back, but not before she let out a single low bark. One word in a language only two souls understood. I found you. The hospital's trauma bay was already prepped when the ambulance door swung open, and the paramedics wheeled Erin inside with urgency stitched into every motion. Alarms beeped, gloves snapped, and voices overlapped as doctors and nurses closed in. Smoke inhalation, internal bruising, dehydration, a pulse that dipped in and out like a tide caught between worlds. They moved fast, but careful, like they knew they weren't just saving a patient, they were saving something more. Outside, Luna wasn't allowed past the ER doors, but that didn't stop her. She paced the entry like a ghost made of muscle and will, hackles raised every time someone walked past wearing scrubs. When they tried to corral her, she planted herself at the glass doors, eyes locked on the hallway, unmoving, waiting. Inside the waiting room, deputies spoke softly into phones while firemen sat with soot still clinging to their gear. The rookie who first heard the voice rubbed his eyes, then glanced up at the television mounted in the corner. The screen flickered to a local news alert. A cell phone video, shaggy and grainy, filled the frame. Luna, standing outside the burning barn, refusing to leave. The headline read, "Con officer refuses to abandon missing handler." And just like that, the story lit a match of its own. Within hours, the footage was everywhere, shared by news anchors, police pages, strangers who'd never met Erin, but suddenly felt like they knew her. Hashtag spread, hashtag loyal like Luna, hash canine valor, hash never left her. It wasn't just the sight of the barn burning, it was the yai in front of it, unleashed, unhoused, unrelenting. Luna wasn't barking for help in that clip. She was daring the world to care. And they did. Messages poured into the hospital, letters, donations, handmade collars. A veteran mailed in a bronze tag engraved with the words, "She waited." A little girl in Kentucky sent a drawing of Luna with a cape and the words, "Super Dog," written in glitter pen. But Luna didn't need a title. She didn't need viral fame. She needed one thing to see Erin wake up. And though no one could explain it, the doctors noticed something. Every time Luna was allowed near Erin's recovery window, her vitals steadied, the monitors calmed, like her body knew what her mind hadn't caught up to yet, that she wasn't alone, that somewhere past the haze, past the pain, was the heartbeat she'd followed through fire. And outside, Luna lay in wait, not just a Taria, not just a partner, but a promise made flesh. She hadn't come this far to leave now. The barn fire had barely cooled before questions started smoldering in its ashes. The fire marshal ruled it suspicious, accelerant traced in the hay, ignition points too strategic. But it was what they found a mile down the road that shifted the story from tragedy to something darker. Erin's cruiser, still parked where it had been left, offered no signs of forced entry, no smashed glass, no struggle. But when a forensics team crawled underneath, they found something the initial sweep missed. A dark, slick trail cutting across the undercarriage. Brake fluid. Not just a leak, a line. Clean, deliberate. A tampering job. Someone had drained her braking system. She hadn't pulled over by choice. She'd veered off, brakes failing, forced to stop on foot. That barn hadn't been shelter. It had been a trap. The sheriff's department opened an internal investigation. Dispatch logs were reviewed. Body cams, vehicle maintenance records. Someone had marked her shift assignment by hand the night before. Someone who didn't want her on her usual route. Someone who knew exactly where she'd be and what barns sat abandoned at the edge of those woods. Erin hadn't stumbled into danger. She'd been placed, set up, left to burn. But whoever did it missed one thing: the dog. Luna wasn't on any rotation. She didn't report to shift supervisors. She wasn't listed on any schedule. She was Erin's shadow, and no one counted on the shadow fighting back. Detectives pulled surveillance from a gas station near the site. Footage showed a figure in a hoodie walking near Erin's cruiser hours before her shift. No plates, no odd, just gloves and intent. They hadn't spoken about motive yet, but those closest to Erin remembered something. A string of complaints she'd filed against a retired officer rumored to have ties to a back-channel narcotics operation. The same officer who had once trained new recruits, the same officer who taught Luna's first command. The picture wasn't clear, not yet, but it was sharpening. And as pieces slid into place, one fact rose above the smoke and secrets. Erin had been silenced for what she saw, and the only reason she was still breathing was a K9 who saw even more. Luna hadn't just guarded the barn, she'd guarded the truth. And now, with that truth clawing its way to the surface, someone was about to learn what happens when you come for a cop, but forget the dog. The machines spoke for her at first: steady beeps, slow drips, the mechanical hum of a ventilator pulsing beside her like borrowed breath. Erin Walker lay still beneath layers of gauze and tubing, her skin pale beneath the bruises, her eyes flickering but not yet focused. The ICU was hushed, as if the walls themselves understood how close she'd come to fading out. Doctors had warned it might take days, that she might not remember, that even if her body survived, the smoke and trauma might have scrambled the rest. But when her eyelids finally lifted, they didn't blink in confusion. They searched. Through the haze of sedation, through the white ceiling tiles and soft footsteps, her gaze darted around the room, unfocused, then sharpening with a quiet urgency. Her fingers twitched, her lips parted. "Wait," a nurse whispered, noticing the change. "She's waking up." They called the attending, adjusted the oxygen, but Erin didn't care about them. Her eyes kept scanning the door for someone, for something. When they realized who she needed, a call was made. Special clearance was granted. First time the hospital had ever allowed it. Luna padded softly down the corridor minutes later, escorted by a deputy and flanked by a nurse. She didn't pull the leash, didn't bark. She just walked like she knew, like she'd been waiting long enough. The moment the door opened, Erin's head turned toward the sound. Her eyes widened. The monitors jumped, a blip of a heartbeat, stronger now. Luna stepped forward, hesitating only once, then moved straight to the side of the bed. She didn't leap, didn't cry. She rested her chin gently on the mattress and stared up into Erin's eyes. That was all it took. A sound broke from Erin's lips, hoarse, cracked, almost too soft to catch. But everyone in the room heard it. "You found me." Her hand, bruised and bandaged, lifted slowly. Luna pressed her muzzle into it, and for the first time since they pulled her from the fire, Erin smiled. It wasn't big, it wasn't loud, but it was enough to make a nurse step out of the room, tears on her cheeks. Enough to make a paramedic outside whisper, "She made it." Enough to know that whatever had burned, whatever had broken, that bond hadn't. It had only burned brighter. In the end, it wasn't the meds or the machines that pulled Erin back. It was a set of eyes. Brown, steady, loyal. that had never stopped. Looking. And finally, they had found each other again. They told her it would be months before she could walk again without a limp, that her lungs would take longer, that she might never wear the uniform again. Erin Walker didn't argue. She just nodded, then got to work. Physical therapy started slow. Rubber bands, breathing drills, tremors in her fingers every time she tried to grip something with strength. But every time she fell short, Luna was there, sitting just outside the glass room, eyes locked, tail thumping softly, waiting, watching, reminding her that giving up wasn't part of the job. Within weeks, Erin stood on her own. Within 2 months, she was walking. By the third, she asked for her badge back. "You sure?" her captain asked, the question more out of protocol than doubt. "I've never been more sure," she said, and she meant it. The fire hadn't burned her down. It had burned something out of her. The fear, the hesitation, the belief that loyalty always guaranteed protection. Now she moved with purpose, and behind that calm exterior, a fire still smoldered, because the case wasn't closed. The investigation into her sabotage had widened. Forensics confirmed the brake line tampering. Surveillance footage led to an internal review. A name surfaced, not just a suspect, but someone wearing the same patch she did. A brother in blue. Someone who had access, motive, and a long history of covering up things that weren't supposed to make it to reports. The department closed ranks. A few officers refused to speak. One transferred without warning, another requested extended leave. But Erin didn't press, not yet, because while justice took time, she had something stronger than patience. She had purpose. And Luna. Every morning she laced her boots, strapped on her belt, and stepped back into the world. Not to prove anything, but to finish what she started. Luna never left her side. Not in the precinct halls, not on patrol, not even during briefings. The other officers noticed. The bond between them wasn't just partnership anymore. It was survival, stitched in ash and memory. They had walked through fire together, literally, and now nothing could separate them, not protocol, not politics, not fear. Erin still had scars on her skin, in her breath, and the way she paused sometimes when the wind smelled too much like smoke. But she wore them like armor. And every time Luna looked up at her with those steady, knowing eyes, Erin felt it all over again. She wasn't back because she had healed. She was back because something inside her never broke. Something that still burned. The land looked different now. No structure, no smoke, just a wide patch of scorched earth framed by tall grass in the memory of fire. The barn was gone, reduced to ash and caution tape months ago, but the place still pulsed with something unspoken. It was quieter here, not the kind of quiet that came from distance, but the kind that came from reverence. A silence people felt in their chests. Erin stepped from the patrol SUV, her boots crunching softly on gravel, her uniform pressed clean against the autumn breeze. She didn't come alone. Luna walked beside her, leash loose but unnecessary. No commands were given. None were needed. A small crowd had gathered, officers, firefighters, medics, and neighbors who'd followed the story from the first breaking headline. No cameras, no speeches, just presence. Erin walked to the spot where Luna had planted herself on that night, when the flames were rising and no one believed. She knelt down slowly and brushed her hand across the earth. There, a simple wooden plaque had been driven into the soil. Nothing flashy, just carved by hand, the lettering etched deep and honest. She waited. Erin pulled a small medal from her coat pocket, silver, shaped like a badge, the inscription circling the edge. for unwavering loyalty in the line of fire. She laid it gently beneath the plaque, not for the public, not for the department, just for them. For that moment only, they would ever truly understand. Luna sat beside her, head high, chest steady, and then, without cue, she lifted her muzzle to the sky and let out a single clear bark. One bark, not sharp, not frantic, but deep and strong. It cut through the hills like a ribbon through stone. The people around her stood still, not speaking, not moving. They understood. It wasn't mourning, it wasn't grief, it was declaration. It was the sound of a partner who never left her post, who stood at death's door and refused to let it close. Erin reached over, her fingers brushing through Luna's fur, eyes misting as she whispered, "That's it. That's the one." The bark faded into the hills, but its echo stayed in the hearts of those who heard it, in the soil where fire once raged, in the bond that no flames could break. Not every hero walks on two legs. Some just wait until the last ember dies, and the truth stands tall again. And as the sun dipped low over that field where a barn once stood, Aaron and Luna walked away, not as victims, not as survivors, but as something stronger. A woman who never stopped fighting, a young who never stopped believing. Their story wasn't just about fire or betrayal or rescue. It was about loyalty, the kind that doesn't wait for orders, the kind that doesn't back down, even when the world burns. If this story moved you, if you believe some bonds are stronger than fire, then subscribe. Because here we share the stories that don't just make headlines, they make hearts beat harder. And there are more waiting to be told. Stories of courage, stories of devotion, stories that prove some heroes have pause. Don't miss the next one.